Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Please join us today in the study of Srimad Bhagavatam. Today we will be studying Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 11, Chapter 30, the Disappearance of the Yadu Dynasty. Hare Krishna. Please join us for Jaya Mantra prayers. Please join us for Mangalacharan prayers. Together we will sing it. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Mudirye Shavatam Swakatha Krishna Punya Shavana Kirtanaha Hridayantasto Hir Bhadrani Vidhunoti Suhasatam Nashtaprayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavate Uttam Shloke Bhaktir Bhakti Neshtaki. Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Please join us in the recitation of the first verse of Srimad Bhagavatam 11th Canto, Chapter 30, the Disappearance of the Yadu Dynasty. Verse 1. Shri Rajo Vacha
Shri Rajo Vacha
Tato Mahabhagavata
Tato Mahabhagavata
Uddhave Nirgate Vanam
Uddhave Nirgate Vanam
Dvaravatyam Kim Akarod
Dvarvatyam Kim Akarod
Bhagwan Bhuta Bhavanaha.
Bhagwan Bhuta Bhavana.
Please.
Shri Rajo Vacha
Shri Rajo Vacha
Tato Mahabhagavata
Tato Mahabhagavata
Uddhave Nirgate Vanam
Uddhave Nirgate Vanam
Dvaravatyam Kim Akrod
Dvaravatyam Kim Akrod
Bhagwan Bhuta Bhavana.
Bhagwan Bhuta Bhavanaha. Shri Raja Uvacha.
Shri Raja Vacha,
The king said,
the king said,
Tataha,
Tata,
then Mahabhagavate, the
Mahabhagavate,
great devotee,
the great devotee,
Uddhave,
Uddhave,
Uddhav,
Uddhav,
Nirgate,
Nirgate,
when he had gone,
Vanam,
to the forest, Dvaravatyam,
Dvaravatyam,
in Dwaraka,
in Dwarka,
Kim, what? Akarot, did. Bhagwan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Bhuta, of all living beings, Bhavana, the protector. Translation by the disciples of His Divine Grace, Sri Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. King Parikshit said, after the great devotee Uddhav left for the forest, what did the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the protector of all living beings, do in the city of Dwarka? Purport. Parikshit Maharaj now inquires from Shukdev Goswami about the topic of chapter 1 of this canto, namely the annihilation of the Yadu Dynasty and Lord Krishna's return to the spiritual sky. Because Lord Krishna was playing the part of an ordinary member of the Yadu Dynasty, he appeared to react to the curse of the Brahmanas by giving up his earthly pastimes. Lord Krishna cannot actually be cursed by anyone. Narad Muni and the other sages who cursed the Yadu Dynasty are eternal devotees of Lord Krishna and could hardly curse him. Therefore, in giving up his pastimes and leaving the earth with the Yadu Dynasty, Lord Krishna demonstrated this internal potency and personal will. Since no one can challenge the supreme potency of the personality of Godhead. Hare Krishna. Please join us for Guru Prati. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine
Om Ajnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langhayate Girim Yat Kripa Tadaham Vande Shri Gurum Deenataranam. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, dear devotees. So this is where an important event, the conclusion of Uddhava Gita. So Uddhava Gita finished in the last chapter. But here it is, the concluding part. What did Lord Krishna do once Uddhava left to Bhadrika Ashram, where he meditated on the name, form, activities and pastimes of Lord Shri Krishna while sustaining himself on the basic needs, right? By wearing the bark of the trees and eating the fruits and worshipping the Lord at Bhadrika Ashram, and regularly taking bath in Alakananda river, which is another name for Ganges river. So Parikshit Maharaj, he could see that Shukadeva Goswami has suddenly gone in trance, thinking of Uddhava. So it became important because he had seen many times when Shukadeva Goswami would talk about Bhakti Yoga, the devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, right? So he would completely lose himself and he would constantly go in meditation. So Parikshit Maharaj inquires again, and as the purport says, reveals that the question he had asked in the first chapter of 10th Canto regarding the Lord Krishna's pastimes and how he left, how he completed his pastimes and returned back home, back to Godhead. He returned back to his eternal home, Golok Vrindavan. So he wants to know about this. And at that time, not just he is inquiring it, he is further elaborating that how painful it would be for all the devotees who were constantly thinking of Lord Shri Krishna. He identifies that women, when they would see the Lord and their eyes meet the Lord's eyes, they could not withdraw their eyes away. They were constantly absorbed in his beauty. Krishna also means all attractive. So all name of gods, all the names that we call him with, they are actually reflecting his name, form, activities, pastimes, right? Krishna means all attractive. Govinda means one who gives pleasure to the senses, and also Go also means cows. So pleasure to the cows. And in Vrindavan we know that cows are very dear to Lord Shri Krishna. And when he takes his 800,000 some cows, that Nand Maharaj has, they are all, getting this transcendental bliss, with Lord Shri Krishna when he is taking them to the forest, the 12 forests around Vrindavan and so forth. And similarly, the sages, when they are meditating on Lord Shri Krishna and they are able to see Lord Shri Krishna as the, super soul in their heart, Paramatma feature, then they are completely lost in that meditation, and that is true samadhi. And in the previous chapter, Lord Krishna revealed to Uddhava Bhakti Yoga in a very simple form, that one should always constantly think of me, meditating on me, should perform their prescribed duties. So this was a summary of the 18 chapters that Lord Krishna has spoken to Arjuna previously, that perform your duties while offering whatever you do at my lotus feet. So again, offer it to me. As an offering to me, you should perform your activities. And you should look at everyone with equal vision. Samaha Darshana. So again, always see all living entities as very dear to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, because Lord expands in the form of Paramatma and is residing in every living entity's heart, every body. So that is very important to understand. So when Parikshit Maharaj, he is describing that this is the time Uddhava has revealed that Lord is returning back home, but he is not taking Uddhava. So Uddhava is in Vipralamba Bhava, he is in this mood of separation, just like those of gopis. And with that mood of separation, he is feeling lot of anguish. How will he survive without Lord's protection? And Lord says that, again, I am returning back home, but you perform your duties, and Uddhav follows. And similarly, this instruction is for all of us, that we should perform our prescribed duties while offering whatever we do, to Lord Shri Krishna. And as Parikshit Maharaj is revealing, that the ladies at Dwarka, Mathura, and also in Vrindavan, when they would see Lord and they would be so attracted with the beautiful form of Lord Shri Krishna, then they could not, means actually gopis, they cursed Brahma because of the eyelids. When the eyelids blink, they said they were not able to see Krishna. So what are these eyelids made by this, the first creature of this universe, Brahma? So they were upset with Brahma. So you can imagine, they didn't even want the eyelids to flicker. They didn't want their vision to be interrupted by the, movement of the eyelids. Such was the beauty, such is the beauty of Lord Shri Krishna. And now Parikshit Maharaj, he is feeling that how painful it is for us to be in this mood of separation. And so we should constantly meditate on the name, form, activities, pastimes of Lord Shri Krishna. And by the mercy of Lord Shri Krishna, who appeared as Partha Sarthi, so he was the charioteer of Arjuna at the battle of Kurukshetra. And there, because of his presence, all the warriors who died on the battlefield, they attained liberation. They went back home, back to Godhead. Most of them went to the Vaikuntha planets. So that was the benediction they got, just by Lord Krishna's presence on the battlefield, where he was as a charioteer, he was helping Arjuna in the mission of relieving the earth of its burden. So that is an important thing. And again and again we see that Lord Krishna, just by his one action, he solves many purposes. One important thing has been identified in the purport today is that the Brahmanas, Devashi Narad, and Vashishta Muni, Vishwamitra, and all the other great sages, Kashyapa Muni was also there, and Devala, Sita, all these great rishis who had cursed the Yadu Dynasty when they cursed Samba and Pradyumna, who were playing with them, acting like, trying to fool that this is a pregnant lady, and they dressed Samba as a woman, as a pregnant woman. So when they cursed, they were just following the will of Lord Shri Krishna. Similarly, there was a curse given almost 30 years before this incident, the disappearance of the Yadu Dynasty. And this curse was given by who? It was given by Dhritarashtra's wife, Gandhari. Just the night before Duryodhana was slain, when Lord Krishna visited her, she said that your whole Vansha, the Yadu Vansha, will be destroyed just like I saw my sons getting destroyed. And what did Lord Krishna said? He said, so be it, tathastu, so be it. So he agreed. And it is all his arrangement that when people see, because he wants to satisfy everyone. He doesn't want anyone to be disturbed. And this is a characteristic he says that the devotees have. But how would the devotees have if the Lord doesn't have? So Lord shows by his own example how to understand his will and how to understand the will of his devotees and all the other living entities as well. Yet at the same time carry out an activity in such a manner that everyone is satisfied. So when Gandhari gives this curse, that just like my sons have been killed on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, similarly the whole of Yadu Dynasty will vanquish one day. Lord Krishna knew that the Yadavas have become so powerful that if they stay back and he only returns back home, back to Godhead, then they were very arrogant, they were proud of their prowess because they were as powerful as Lord Shri Krishna. It has been said again and again, Pradyumna, Aniruddha, all these Samba, they were valiant warriors. And if they stayed on, again, there would be havoc on planet Earth because they had become arrogant and proud. Now again, that is because Lord Krishna is showing these pastimes, they have been influenced by the Yoga Maya. Now, one of the important aspects that comes is, as Lord Krishna is agreeing, by his one action, he is satisfying everyone. Now, Parikshit Maharaj is anxious that Lord is so attractive that all the ladies, when all the devotees of Lord Shri Krishna, the gopis, the queens at Dwarka, the women at Mathura and Dwarka, all of them were constantly relishing Lord's beautiful form. And their eyes, they cannot divert their eyes away from his beautiful form. He's so attractive. And this is what we see in this material world as well. When we see material beauty, our senses become agitated. They are like burning like fire. While when we go to the temple and see the beautiful form of Shri Radha Krishna, Shri Radha Madan Mohan, Shri Radha Madhavji, then all our senses are pacified and all our senses are fully satisfied. And we want to just keep looking at them. That is the true beauty, right? Spiritual beauty, which doesn't agitate but rather satisfies the senses. And the yogi is constantly meditating. And of all the yogis, Lord Krishna says, the topmost is Yoginam api sarvesham madgatena antara atmana shaddhavan bhajate yomam same yukta tamo mataha. So whoever is constantly meditating on Lord Shri Krishna, so he's actually saying of all the yogis, there are Gyan yogis, there are Ashtanga yogis, there are Karma yogis and Bhaktas, of all of them, one who is constantly meditating on me, he is the topmost yogi. And that is, he is referring to the Bhaktas, the devotees. So that is at the last verse of the 6th chapter in Bhagavad Gita. So, what did he do? This is an important question that Parikshit Maharaj has. And when he inquires this question, Shukdev Goswami, he immediately remembers. And he says, observing the disturbances on earth, sky and the outer space. So when Lord Krishna, after Uddhav left, because of the influence of his internal personal potency, Yoga Maya, he's showing that there are disturbances. He's making everyone observe these along with him. That there are all these disturbances that are happening. Now, Srila Siddha Swami in his commentary explains very nicely what are these disturbances. On earth, the disturbances are that there are minor earthquakes happening. Right? So if you are on a boat and suddenly the waves are hitting the boat and the boat starts shaking, you become, attentive, you become cautious. What is happening, you start to see. So similarly, Dwarka is like a boat in the middle of an ocean. And now these earthquakes are coming, giving an indication that something is happening. And so Lord Krishna is identifying that, yes, see the disturbances happening on earth. There are other kind of disturbances that Yudhishthira in the first canto, they have been described as well. So Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur elaborates on those. He is saying that there were disturbances like observed by Yudhishthira Maharaj. And one of many of those disturbances were that the flowering and the fructification of fruits, all these activities, they were occurring in different seasons. So if there are flowers, they bloom in summer season, now they are blooming in winter season. And when the trees are supposed to be shedding the leaves and all that stuff, normally happens during the autumn season, the fall season, happening in spring season. So things are, turning upside down. When the farmers are growing grains based on the different seasons, they are not getting the results. And when they by mistake have grown the other kind of things, they are seeing things which are supposed to be blooming in summer are actually blooming in winter. Things that are supposed to be blooming in spring are blooming in fall season. So everyone is bewildered. So those are other kind of disturbances. And also that people are taking to the foul means of livelihood. They are becoming arrogant, they are becoming greedy, they are becoming angry, they are becoming disturbed with a little invocation, agitation and this fraudulent tendency, it has become rampant. So Lord Krishna is revealing that these are the disturbances on earth. And what are the disturbances in the sky? That there is a halo appearing around the sun. So the reddish halo, the ring that's appearing around the sun. And what are the outer space disturbances? So they are unnatural reddish, hue on the horizon that stays. So when the sun is, brightly shining, we don't see the horizon to have any hue. But the sun is nicely shining, and just like we see sometimes the reddish hue during the sunrise and sunset time, that is still appearing. So how could that be happening? Because that is an unnatural, occurrence in the outer space. That halo from sun is making the whole sky look reddish, purplish, and then finally creating like a reddish ring all around the horizon wherever you see. So that is also in the outer space that disturbance is happening. And he goes, of course, like we talked about daily activities of Lord Shri Krishna. When he goes to the Sudharma hall, there he advises all the Yadavas. Now, of course, normally the advisor of the Yadavas, who was the person? Uddhav, right? Now he has left for Badrikashram, so it comes on the shoulder of Lord Shri Krishna. He says that we should immediately leave. Looking at all these disturbances, it looks like the end of this Dwarka island is very near. So we should immediately leave. Now when he says this, materialists, they say, see, even in the God's presence there are so many disturbances. Devotees, we turn it around, saying that these are all happening because of Lord's will, right? Not a leaf moves without God's will. So Lord, by his internal potency, Yoga Maya, is making all this happen because he has a purpose behind them. And so he is satisfying the devotees and he is also satisfying the materialist. So materialists are satisfied thinking that, see, the Brahmana's curse is so powerful, so being cursed, it's very bad, and now, everyone is going to be killed in this process. And devotees are thinking, oh, this is the time when Lord Krishna, he returns back home, back to Godhead. His pastimes are finished here, just like the sun sets, but doesn't mean that the sun is gone. Lord is going to start pastime in another universe as he returns back home. So along with Lord, all his paraphernalia, all his abhors, all the other Vishnu forms, everything, all his eternal associates, they travel with him. So when Lord is going somewhere, how would he be going alone? Of course, all his eternal associates will accompany him. So that is an important thing. But so that we don't get disturbed, Lord is making it in a manner that everyone would accept based on their position. Yai yatha mam prapadyante tam tathaiva bhajamyaham. As one surrenders unto me, I reward him accordingly, Lord Krishna says. Similarly, as one's surrender level is, one sees, the activities accordingly as well. Just like here, devotees looking at the same thing, events, understand what is going on behind the screen. While materialists, with their mundane, poor fund of knowledge, are trying to rationalize. So that's rational plus lies, right? So they are rationalizing that even God, is facing so many things. So how could he be God? So sometimes because of the materialistic mindset, thinking that all this world has been created by Lord Shri Krishna and then God has left and it is for us to enjoy. With that mindset, they can only think so much. They do not know that Lord pervades the universe. Aham sarvasya prabhu mattaha sarvam pravartate. So everything is in Lord Shri Krishna because he pervades everything in his Paramatma feature. And he even enters the spaces between the atom, not just the atoms. And at the heart of every living entity he resides. Sarvasya chaham hridi sannivishto. So Lord Krishna at the Sudharma hall is saying that all these things are happening. So now the women, children, and old men, they should leave the city and go to Shankodhara. And all the men, all the able men, young able men, they should go to Prabhakshetra, where the river Saraswati flows to the west. So now River Saraswati's, her description comes so many places, her references are there. Kadamba Muni, his ashram was at the bank of River Saraswati. Now Lord is referring to Prabha Kshetra, which is also near River Saraswati and so forth. And this place is the Saurashtra on the western coast of Gujarat. That's where this place is referred to. So when Lord is saying that, and then he is suggesting that we should all bathe there for purification, we should fast, right? Austerity, we should perform some austerity, we should perform some meditation, we should worship the demigods. And by bathing their images, so again, perform abhishek of the demigods, the deities, and anointing them with sandalwood pulp. So that's, he is recommending to perform abhishek of demigods. So just like we heard earlier, the gopis were worshipping Katyayani Devi, right? Goddess Durga's deity. So they were praying to Goddess Durga to get Lord Krishna as their husband. Here Lord Krishna is saying, so that, everything stays well, everything goes well, we should worship the demigods. He is saying that so that, based on different perspective, people will look at it, differently. And for pacification and purification, it is always recommended that we should, worship the devotees, and all the demigods are actually devotees of the Lord. And now Yadus, they all agreed. Now understand that these Yadavas are agreeing even though they are more powerful than the demigods. When that reference comes, people are surprised. When devotees say, when Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in his commentary states that the Yadavas agreed. The important aspect is, Lord Krishna, where is he speaking? Where is he giving these instructions, putting forth this nice recommendation that we should go to the Prabha Kshetra, and all the old men, ladies and children should go to the Shakudhara Kshetra? He is saying at Sudharma Hall. Now Sudharma Hall is the assembly hall that Lord Krishna had received from heavenly planets. Where did it come from? This was the assembly hall that Indra had, and it was taken away by the Yadavas, by Lord Shri Krishna. So along with the Parijat flowers, they had received this Sudharma Hall. And Sudharma Hall had these great characteristics, that the 6 kinds of material pangs will not be observed in there. And what are these material pangs? They come in the 3 pairs. So first pair is, one would not feel hunger or thirst. So in this hall, if one is present, he would not have any pang of any, of hunger and thirst. No pang of hunger and thirst. He would be fully satisfied. What will be the second one? Second pair is, there won't be any lamentation and no illusion. So Yadavas at Sudharma Hall, they are not lamenting that our dynasty has been cursed by the Brahmanas. They are taking it as will of God. Let's go with the will. And they are not in illusion as well, because they are in Sudharma Hall. That cannot be there. And what's the third pair? Third pair is old age and death. Someone would not face old age and death when they are in Sudharma Hall. Now somebody would say, wait a minute, Sudharma Hall seems to be that shelter, right? Pandemic time shelter. Why didn't everyone just come to the Sudharma Hall? Means again, when we talk about this characteristic, people ask this question. Well, if Sudharma Hall was so gigantic, whole of Dwarka could have just gone to the Sudharma Hall, and no one would have felt any hunger, no thirst, no illusion, no lamentation, and there was no need to be afraid of old age. One would not get old, and one would not face death. And if Brahmana says everyone is going to be annihilated, they should have gone to Sudharma Hall. Nice argument, yes. This is a mundane perspective. Well, Lord's pastime is ending, right? So when the sun is setting, we don't say, let's move the earth so that the sun does not set. Lord is going to start his pastime in another universe. He is returning back home with his eternal associates. He comes here to give us the message that there is a place where there is no anxiety, no misery. And He is giving us this message. He is showing us by example, by his own example, how to, take to devotional service and how to perform your prescribed duties. He appeared, when Lord appeared as, Lord Vasudev, son of Vasudev, he appeared as a Kshatriya. When Lord Krishna appeared in Vrindavan, he appeared as son of Nanda Maharaj, as a Vaishya. So again, from that perspective, as a mercantile, king's son, so he's like a prince. And in Vrindavan. So again, we have to look things with proper perspective. That Lord is going to go back home, back to Godhead. And here, that has been arranged. So he wants to start his pastime in another place. Yes, we don't want to feel separation, and we feel that yes, he should stay here. And that's why we always feel that the devotees who have stayed here, and Srila Prabhupada have said again and again, many of his purports and his lectures, that if you have received a birth, then your death is certain. And if you die, then your birth is certain. However, we should understand as devotees that when we die, we should not take birth again in this mundane world. Rather, we should return back home, back to Godhead. That's why it is very important. There is a sense of urgency we have to take to devotional service, to attain the goal of life. And what is the goal of life? To attain the love of Godhead, which simply starts with the chanting of the holy name. Hare Kṛṣṇa, Hare Kṛṣṇa, Kṛṣṇa Kṛṣṇa, Hare Hare, Hare Rāma, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So, how to understand will of God is very important. And here, another example of how to understand will of God is Parikshit Maharaj himself. He was cursed to die in 7 days. And right in the middle of Srimad Bhagavatam came Indra with the pot of nectar. He says, excuse me, I am here with the pot of nectar so that Parikshit Maharaj can taste it and becomes immortal. And we would like to have Shukadeva Goswami to recite Srimad Bhagavatam to everyone in the spiritual world, in the heavenly planets, not the spiritual. So again, even heavenly planets are in the material universe. And at that time, he was quickly denied that request. He was thinking that he is trying to benefit, but Parikshit Maharaj surrendered to the will of God, right? And that's why he is glorified. He attained perfection. Shukadeva Goswami, he surrendered to the will of God. That's why he attained perfection. Prithu Maharaj, he was performing the 100th Ashwamedh Yajna, and Indra was stealing his horse. And he became angry. At that time, Lord Brahma came to pacify Prithu Maharaj that why are you trying to do the 100th one? See, Indra is getting, he's feeling insecure. So please, refrain from doing this. And then Lord Vishnu himself came on Guru with Indradev. And he also is requesting Prithu Maharaj not to perform the 100th yajna. So even the 99 Ashwamedh yajnas that Prithu Maharaj has performed is greater service. He did not perform the 100th and is more glorified. He is glorified more than Indra because he agreed to surrender to the will of God. So that is one very important aspect. We should understand to simply surrender to the will of God. Whatever is happening in our life, in one way or other, it is paving our path back home. We just have to understand that it is actually a shortcut. Sometimes it is an easier path than if we had gone by our own will. So many times we would see, looking back in time, that we were objecting to things, right? We were resisting to various circumstances, various events, various situations in our life. And those situations were actually there to make us more humble, to make us more tolerant, to make us more forgiving. Being kind is better than being right. They were telling us that to take to devotional service, we have to set our mood right. We have to have the right attitude because Lord is Bhavgrahi Janadana. Bhavgrahi Janadana, He understands the essence, the heart, the feeling of His devotees. So we all living entities are Jivera Swarupaya Kṛṣṇa Nityadas. We are all eternal servants of Lord Shri Krishna. And He understands our heart very well. Before even, the desire we get in our heart can be transmitted over for the senses to carry out, Lord knows them. And He is, as overseer and permitter in His super soul form, His Paramatma feature form, He sanctions or He restricts. He accordingly decides. So He is the supreme independent and supreme enjoyer. So He is always, His plan works out. This is something we understand as devotees. So there is no possibility at Sudharma Council, but then Lord is not suggesting bring everyone to Sudharma Council, because that would be illusion. How long would you stay at Sudharma Council? Finally, you have to come out. And actually, Lord has to return back home. And everything has been nicely arranged. So there is no illusion. Even thinking that Lord should have asked everyone to come to Sudharma Council is a part of illusion, because everyone is thinking that we want to live eternally. And that is very natural for one to live eternal, because we are actually eternal beings, right? Atma, the living entities are eternal. And this facing a death of the body is very unnatural. So people get bewildered, they become, upset when they hear, any of, loved one departing from earth. But we should also understand that actually it appears as death to our eyes, or it appears as birth of someone to our eyes, and we associate with this relativity and illusion due to the influence of Mahamaya, Lord's external potency. And the three modes of material nature, they are agitating and they are causing various actions and reactions in this material world. In reality, the nature of the material world is transformation. So actually nothing is lost. When the body, the soul leaves the body still has its gross elements, and those gross elements merge back into the gross elements, and they again circulate back and come in different forms, and different bodies emerge from them. So when we understand it this way, that this is not our nature, this is the nature of the material energy, and we become detached from it, then we are at peace. Then we understand that Lord is so merciful. And now everybody is following the instructions. So all these Yadavas, the young, strong Yadavas, they are going to Prabhashit. And there they perform, very opulent deity worship. And they are, worshipping the demigods, and they are worshipping the Brahmanas. And Lord Krishna said that, at Sudharma Hall, that we should give a lot of charity to the Brahmanas, right, to satisfy the Brahmanas. Sometimes, what is it? So sometimes people get, bewildered. Why do we have to serve the Brahmanas? Brahmanas are said to be the spiritual masters of the human race. So for humanity, Brahmanas appear as the spiritual masters. They are the teachers. And they try to help the humanity by spreading this message of Godhead, the love of God. And this message enables us to attain the supreme goal. So that's why Lord Krishna again and again is identifying that the Varnashram Dharma, the system, Varnashram system has been established by Him. And everyone should perform their prescribed duties. Now, when we talk about prescribed duties, there was another question that came yesterday. Somebody said, if I am the spirit soul, then I should perform my duties. Why should I worry about the duties of the body? Well, if you assume that you are sitting in a car, right, and if you have to carry out some activities that the car carries out, right, it turns left, it turns right, it runs on the road, and then it has some constraints, it cannot go on to the hilly area, the bumps and other things will spoil it. For that you need an SUV, right, a demigod's body. And on the other hand, if somebody has a bicycle and is feeling, trying to run it, feeling a lot of anxiety and pain, that's like, an animal's body. So that particular vehicle one has received to do various activities is very limited, has the tendency of falling down when gets tired very soon, because the kind of fuel it gets is of different nature. It's a human labor, so the living entity has to work very hard. So in different kind of bodies, different kind of endeavors are required. Yet at the same time, all vehicles have this purpose of going from point A to point B. Now in the case of human beings, we have this perfect vehicle where we have a combination of pain and pleasure, but we can engage, so that we can engage in devotional service. Both conditions are favorable. But in the hellish planets, there is unlimited pain, right? There is constant suffering in the heavenly planets, hellish planets. So it is very difficult to meditate on the name form activities of Lord Shri Krishna. So that is like the state when somebody has a broken bicycle, they are trying to go from point A to point B. It's very difficult. In the case of heavenly planets, everyone is enjoying. They are going on a adventurous ride. They've forgotten about going from point A to point B. They want to enjoy this ride. They have got this great SUV that they are driving. And they want to go on the hills. They want to see from the hills how everything looks and feel great about themselves. And they enjoy the great facilities within the SUV. They have all kind of air conditioning and, different kind of facilities within the SUV and all that. So again, that's like body of a demigod. But we human beings have this perfect arrangement where we can engage all our circumstances, actually paving our path. Only what is needed is the proper sight, the proper perception to be able to see. And that's why we take shelter of the Shastra, Guru and Sadhus. This is where with Shastra comes Shastra Chakshush. From the eyes of the Shastra when we see things based on the teachings of the devotees, the acharyas, the Vaishnavas, then we have the right understanding. So from that perspective, we should look at things. So one has to perform prescribed duties. As in the human form of life, we have various prescribed duties being identified in the 4 Varnas. And these prescribed duties should, when performed for the pleasure of Lord, as Lord desires, become devotional service automatically. So that is another aspect, right? So when we perform our duties for the pleasure of Lord Shri Krishna, then there is no reaction to these activities. And they should not be motivated by any fruitive results, right? We should not be attached to the fruits that we get. When we perform deity worship, we should not be thinking, I offered the bhoga, so I must get a prasadam plate from that bhoga, that prasadam plate, because I am my first right. So that is itself stinting the devotional service. However, when that attitude is there, it makes our journey difficult, because Lord is Bhagavanada. He knows what's going on in our heart. We should rather be thinking, how better can I serve the Lord? How clean can I keep the temple? How clean can I keep my services? How attentive am I when I'm chanting the mantras? So all those things are very important. Now, when all the young, strong Yadavas are at Prabha-kshetra, they start enjoying a sweet beverage, Maria. So this Maria sweet beverage is very intoxicating. And as Providence would have it, what happens? They become highly intoxicated. And remember earlier, when Maharaj Ugrasen had that, the club, being broken into like literally powder and thrown into the river, the fishes, actually the waves had taken them to this Prabha-kshetra, and they had grown up as tall stalks, the bamboo sticks. So again, they were there. And the small lump of iron that was thrown in was taken by a fish, which was caught by the fishermen. They had supplied it to hunter Jara, and he had nicely carved an arrowhead out of this, the small lump of iron that was there. So all this is happening because of the internal potency Yog Maya of Lord Shri Krishna. And all the Yadavas, they become arrogant and they start to feel arrogant and being bewildered by the personal potency of Lord Shri Krishna. A terrible quarrel starts among them. They start fighting with each other. And of course, as Yadavas, they would go out with all their, weapons, Astra, Shastra, chariots and so forth. So they, riding on the elephants, on the chariots, the horses, they started fighting with each other. So much so that their weapons were exhausted. And then they started breaking the stalks from which had grown. So again, these bamboo sticks. They were breaking those and then fighting with each other with these bamboo sticks. Now, one thing that also happened, as soon as they would break away a bamboo stick, it would turn into like an iron rod. And this transformation was suitable for them to fight with each other. And they were fighting. So how could this be happening? This is all the arrangement of Lord Shri Krishna. He's watching how everything is happening. So Pradyumna, he started fighting fiercely with Samba. Akrura against Kunti Bhoja. Aniruddha against Satyaki. And Subhadra against Sangramjit. Saumitra started fighting with Suratha. And the two Gadas started fighting with each other. And similarly, Nishata, Ulmaka, Satyajit and Bhanu, they started quarreling. They were completely bewildered by the intoxicating liquor that they had taken, Maria, the sweet beverage, and being bewildered by Lord Mukunda himself. So it is very important when Shukdev Goswami says Lord Mukunda. Lord Krishna, why is he called Mukunda? What is the meaning of Mukunda? Mukunda means one who bestows liberation. He is going to take them back home, back to Godhead. But for the materialist, he covers his pastimes. That will be revealed how he does that in the next chapter. But it is here, very nicely is being explained, that the Yadu clans, they started fighting all the Dasharas, the Vishris, the Andhakas, the Bhojas, the Satvakas, Madhus and Arbhus, and Madhuras and Sursenas, Visarjanas, Kukuras and Kuntis, all of them started fighting with each other, slaughtering each other. And at that time, Lord Balaram, he tried to stop them, then they started attacking Lord Balaram. Seeing this, of course, Lord Krishna, he's trying to expedite, right? There are more than 1 million young, strong warriors at this beach, at the Prabha Kshetra. So Lord Krishna joins with Balaram and they break stalks, and these stalks turn into these iron rods, and as if they are clubs, they started killing the Yadavas without discrimination. So again, they are doing this to take them back home, back to Godhead. Now also understand that not all the personalities who were killed in these pastimes went back home, back to Godhead. We talked about this. There were many demigods who had taken birth in the Yadu Dynasty. And these demigods, because they had the same strength and similar potency as Lord Shri Krishna, they could not appreciate, right? Familiarity breeds contempt. They could not appreciate the supreme position of Lord Shri Krishna. He thought that Lord Shri Krishna is just like a commoner like us, and we have the same potency, so they became proud and arrogant and they would not respect. So they, when killed on this battlefield, they returned back to their heavenly planets, to their original position as demigods, the previous position. Original position is, of course, every living entity is servant of Lord Shri Krishna. But the previous position as demigods, they went back to those positions. Some demigods who had surrendered, like Uddhav, he was one of the Vasus. He attained liberation, and many others, like Akrura, right? He attained perfection. So, in this way, many of the demigods who had fully surrendered at the lotus feet of Lord Shri Krishna, understanding him to be the Supreme Personality of Godhead, they joined the eternal associates, and so it appears to others, to the common man's eye, that all these Yadavas, they became, they were bewildered by the intoxicating liquor, Maria, and so they fought with each other. And they killed each other. Such is the effect of the curse of Brahmanas. And then some people say, oh, this is the effect of the curse of Gandhari, when she gave that curse 36 years back, before this Prabha Kshetra incident happened. And so there are various reasons people give. They rationalize differently. However, the final, ultimate reason is because Lord Krishna understood that this is the time to go back home. So when he is going back home, he is taking everyone with him. So all the associates of Lord Shri Krishna, the eternal associates, are leaving along with Lord Shri Krishna. Now as Lord Shri Krishna and Balaram, they start killing all the other Yadavas, And at that time, once they are all killed, Lord Balaram, he goes to the beach, and there, meditating on, he gives up his body. So again, he returns back home. Lord Shri Krishna, he comes at this time, and now he is feeling satisfied that the burden of the earth has been delivered. Now Acharyas explain that actually the burden of the earth were already delivered when the Kurukshetra war happened, right? Previously, 18 battles between Lord Shri Krishna and Jarasandha, 17 of them Lord Krishna had destroyed, so many 18 Akshayanis every time of Jarasandha's army. So he was delivering, relieving the burden of the earth at that time. Then there are about 11 Akshayanis from Kauravas and 7 Akshayanis from Pandavas side. 18 Akshayanis again on Kurukshetra, they were destroyed. At Rukmini Devi's marriage, Jarasandha and so many other demonic kings, they had their armies ready, and all of them were destroyed by Lord Balaram. So the burden of earth was already getting destroyed. What about the Yadavas? Because when demigods had come to pray to Lord Shri Krishna previously, that Lord, it is time for you to return back home, back to Godhead. At that time, Lord Krishna said, yes. However, there is a burden of love. All these Yadavas, they need to return as well, otherwise they will create havoc here. So he is making this arrangement. So the eternal associates are returning back home, and all the devotees who had surrendered to Lord Shri Krishna, even though they were demigods or rishis in the past lives, they are returning back home, back to Godhead, because of the liberation being granted by Lord Shri Krishna, while those arrogant ones who could not surrender return back to the previous position as demigods. And here Lord Krishna, he goes and sits under the peepal tree, because there is one important pastime that is still pending. What is this pastime? Right? Lord Krishna is feeling satisfied that yes, now the Yadavas are gone. Lord Balaram has also returned. He is about to get ready for the next, to appear in the next universe. Lord is sitting under the peepal tree, and he is putting his left foot on his right foot. So as he is sitting, the kumkuma on his foot, from a distance behind the bushes, there is this hunter Jara. He is seeing, and it mistakes the heel of, with the kumkuma to be the face of a deer. So he shoots his arrow that touches the heel, the foot of Lord Shri Krishna. And when he comes running, Jara comes running, he sees that actually he has shot the arrow at the foot of Lord Shri Krishna. So he is lamenting, and he is calling himself wretched, that I am so fallen, that you are the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and I could not properly, my whole life is spoiled, that I hurt you. This is a very important place where we should take lesson, that we should be very careful when we are dealing with the deities. We should be very careful when we are reading scripture. Srimad Bhagavatam is not different from Lord Shri Krishna. So at that time, this hunter Jara is lamenting and asking for forgiveness. He is saying, please, kill me, who is the most sinful person on this planet Earth. And that time Lord simply smiles, and he says that all this is happening because of my arrangement. Now interestingly, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur provides us further insight that actually Shukdev Goswami, when narrating, he says that when Jara saw that he had shot the arrow at Lord Krishna's feet, at his foot, thinking that it's a face of a deer, he started praying. So the arrow had only touched Lord's foot. It had not pierced, because if that was the case, then Shukdev Goswami would have said that he first took the arrow out of Lord's foot, and then whatever happened. So he had not, injured per se, rather the arrow had simply touched Lord's feet. He is transcendental, Lord is transcendental. So from that perspective, Acharyas revealed to us, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Pad reveals to us, that this all arrangement has been happening because of Lord's internal potency, Yogamaya. Another example he gives is, another insight, another secret he reveals is, that out there at this Prabhas Kshetra, there were so many warriors, they were fighting. And how could a hunter who is trying to go out for a hunt, killing a deer with this thought of, going to the forest and killing, would not have been, attracted or would not have paid attention to these millions of warriors fighting with each other, killing each other. All the cries and all the loud noises and the clanking of the weapons, how could it not have? That was because of the influence of Yogamaya, Lord's internal potency. So it was all playing out very nicely as a pastime of Lord Shri Krishna. So in this manner, the whole event is going on as Lord Krishna desires, right? So I have my plan, you have your plan, and then Lord Krishna has his plan. So whose plan will come out finally? So we should not resist. We should simply surrender to Lord Krishna's plan, and that's where we feel transcendental bliss. So anukulena Krishna anushinam. As Lord Krishna desires, we should perform our activities, our duties. So Jara, when he is praying, so Lord Krishna is saying, now somebody asked, who is this hunter Jara? How come his reference came that he received a lump of, that iron from the club which was grounded, as well as he creates this arrowhead and then he shoots the arrow and this arrow touches the feet of Lord Shri Krishna. Now, who is this hunter Jara? This hunter Jara is none other than Vali, the brother of Sugriva in Ramayana. So there, it is very interesting. Now people go back to Ramayana and then they say, well, Lord Rāma has been glorified as, Purushottama. He is establishing the religious principles. He is best of all the men. And at the same time, he is shooting, as a Kshatriya, he should be challenging Vali. But he is shooting from behind the tree. How is that possible? So there are various references. Even Vali, if you go back to Rama, there Vali asked this question, that you were looking for your wife, you should have come to me. And I would have helped you search for your wife. Why did you have to shoot me? And at that time, Lord Ramchandra, he gives perfect response. So we'll cover that response soon. Let's also cover some of the history of Vali to understand his personality very well. Vali, again, twin of Sugriva. So both were the sons of Aditya. Sometimes people say Vali was son of Indra. Sometimes it's said that he was son of Vivaswan. So Vali and Sugriva, it's been given, were twin sons of Vivaswan. Again, that's another reference. And Hanumanji, right? Bajrangbali. Who is his spiritual master? Do you know who the spiritual master of Lord Hanuman is? None other than sun god, Lord Vivaswan. So after finishing his education, again, we know two incidents where Hanumanji, when he was a child, he wanted to eat the sun god, thinking it's an apple. And later on, when sun was about to rise and he had gone to get Sanjeevani, he picks up the sun and puts in his armpit so that it doesn't rise before he reaches back to Lanka with Sanjeevani booty. So, yes, so he had actually said to Hanumanji that why don't you go and serve my son Sugriva. That way, because he has been kicked out from the kingdom by his brother Vali. Vali was very powerful. So what had happened was, Vali, through meditation, he actually had received a boon from Lord Brahma. What was this boon? This boon was that whenever Vali is in duel, when he is fighting on a battlefield, his opponent will immediately lose half of his strength. So the opponent strength will become half, but where will this half strength go? That half strength will come to Vali. So now Vali has his strength and he has the half strength of his opponent. So of course, in this particular duel, there is only one winner, Vali, right? It's already decided. Lord Brahma says this, and by the mercy of Lord Krishna, it happens. So again, that's another reference where in the scripture it's been revealed, when a devotee is serving Lord for 12 years or more, after that, whatever they say becomes true. So that's also another secret you came to know. That's why when anybody sees a devotee, they immediately want to take their blessings and say, please bless me, please give me this blessings. Because if the devotee blesses them, then those blessings will come back, come to life. But we should be intelligent that when we ask a devotee for blessing, we should not ask for temporary things, right? We should ask for eternal things, like, please give me love of Godhead, please give me devotional service, please engage me in devotional service. So from that mode we should be asking a devotee to bless us. And when Srila Prabhupada was at New York at the Matchless Gift Shop, he was, with his disciples. Once a few Indians, they entered and said, Swamiji, bless us. And Srila Prabhupada pointed to the, shaven-headed disciples who were chanting Mahamantra. He said, that is my blessing. And they said, okay, Swamiji. From a distance they paid obeisance and left, without realizing that actually he is giving them the true benediction. So again, our perception is very important. It needs to be dovetailed and needs to be sharpened and cleared with the eyes of the Shastras, Shastra Chakshus. That is very important. And with the association of devotees, right? Devotee association enables us to get this vision. And under the instructions and guidance of a spiritual master, we are able to perform our devotional service so that anartha nivritti, all the kind of unwanted bad qualities, they are driven away. And even the reactions, the sinful reactions, are destroyed in this two course. The one that are in the beat, kuja, prarabdha, only the prarabdha, which have already manifested form, they are there. But then the other ones, they slowly destroy with the engagement of devotional service, which simply starts with the chanting of the holy name. Hare Kṛṣṇa, Hare Kṛṣṇa, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So Bali, when Raman wanted to fight with Bali, first Sugriv stopped him and Raman quickly defeated Sugriv. And then he came to Bali, and then Bali was at that time in meditation. And Bali would take so many big jumps. He would go from one pilgrimage to another teeth, one holy place to another, and taking bath in the rivers. So when Ravan approached him, immediately what happened? Bali caught him with his tail. And Bali didn't even realize that someone is crying behind me, caught in my tail. And he's jumping from one place to another, and poor Ravan is like constantly being thrashed. And in the middle of worship, when he was making too much noise, Bali for many years, he just kept him under his armpit. So Ravan his complete pride was destroyed in the presence of Bali, because Bali had immediately taken half of the strength that Ravan had. And of course, Bali was much more powerful with this combination. So afterwards, Ravan, he made a plea. He said, become my friend. At that time, Bali said, okay, you are my friend. So at that time, this was one of the reasons Lord Ramchandra gave, that you are actually friend of Ravan. How could I ask from a friend of an enemy? Because you would not understand my position. You will go, thinking your friend is more important to you than this wandering prince in the forest. And another aspect is that when you fought with Mayavi, you lost your kingdom. You are no more king in my eyes. So why are you saying that you are king and you could help me? And third reason Lord Ramchandra gives is that even if Sugriv made a mistake, he actually made this mistake of covering the cave with a boulder, thinking that you have been killed. And when you fought with Mayavi, and this incident, it actually, made you lose your position as a king. And an elder brother should always consider the younger brother like son. And even if one's son makes a mistake, a younger brother makes a mistake, he should forgive and be very compassionate. Rather, you tormented Sugriv, drove him out of your kingdom, Kishkinda, and you kept his wife Tara. So that is very abominable. So I would not take help from you, and that's why, I took help from Sugriv. And because Lord Ramchandra shot the arrow from behind the tree, that is why he's showing that in this material world, the cycle must be completed by his own example. He's allowing Bali to appear as Jara, hunter Jara, who is shooting the arrow at his feet, so that cycle finishes. So now that you have understood how this cycle finishes, he says, now Jara, you should return back home, back to Godhead. So this is where the benediction, the causeless mercy is visible. Lord Krishna is so merciful that even that hunter who is hurting him, he is sending him back home, back to Godhead. So again, a golden Hansa Viman appears, and Jara boards this Viman and goes back home, back to Godhead. Now Daruk is looking for Lord Shri Krishna. He has brought the chariot of Lord Shri Krishna, and then following the smell of Tulsi, he finally comes to the Pipala tree where Lord Krishna is sitting. And seeing the arrow there, which had touched Lord Krishna's feet, Daruk, his voice is choking. He understands that Lord Krishna is about to leave. And he's praying to Lord Shri Krishna that what would happen, please, Lord, bless us. And, and he has already seen all the warriors dead on the battlefield. Again, another incident, another happening as a pastime of Lord Shri Krishna. So he understands what's going to happen next. And amazingly, when he is praying to Lord Shri Krishna at that time, he sees that the chariot starts rising, going back home. And all the weapons of Lord Shri Krishna, they come in their personalized form, and they are also ascending the sky, going back home. Right? That's why when we look at the sky, this is where we, pray and we look up. Sometimes people, they are bewildered in this material world. They say, why are you looking up? They ask these mundane questions. Devotees ignore them. They understanding that Daruk, he sees all the weapons rising up. And then Lord Krishna instructs him that Daruk, along with your family and all the elderly men and women, under the protection of Arjuna, you should all go to Indraprastha. So he takes this, and with this instruction from Lord Shri Krishna, in this Vipranambhava, in this mood of separation, this mood of anxiety, feeling what is happening, understanding what is happening, he surrenders. Yet at the same time, Lord has given this message that go to Dwarka and tell everyone that soon whole of Dwarka, except for Lord Krishna's palace, whole of Dwarka would be, flooded by the ocean water. The ocean water will cover everything. So they should leave and under the protection of Arjuna, and they should go to Indraprastha. And Daruk leaves Prabhashetra to go to, he returns back to Dwarka. This is where this chapter ends. Now we have to understand it with the right perspective, that this is all Lord Krishna's pastimes. In the next chapter, we will cover, which is the 31st chapter, the disappearance of Lord Shri Krishna himself, and how the remaining, eternal associates, they return back home, back to Godhead. And how Arjuna, he is overwhelmed with feeling for Lord Shri Krishna, and which connects us to the first canto. So we'll have some amazing lessons there. But again, we have to understand that Lord Krishna is revealing here, Janma karma chame divyam evam yo veti tattvataha taktva deham punarjanma neti mameti swarjuna. Whoever understands the appearance and pastimes of Lord Shri Krishna does not take birth again in this material world, rather returns back home, back to Godhead. So with that mood, we should be constantly engaging in devotional service. And in the next chapter, we will also be looking at one of the questions that the sages asked, which was revealed, the response was given by Sutta Goswami. Kṛṣṇe svadhamo padyate dharma jnanadibhi saha kalo nashtam drisham esha purana adhunodita. Purana means as brilliant as the sun. And what's this? Purana is Srimad Bhagavatam. So Srimad Bhagavatam is not different from Lord Shri Krishna. He appears in the form of Srimad Bhagavatam, which is as brilliant as the sun. And for the men, for persons who have lost the vision in the darkness of ignorance in this Kali age, Kala Nashta Drishamesha. So they will get light from this Purana, which has risen just like a sun. So you can think of sunrise time as it drives away the night. Similarly, with the appearance of Srimad Bhagavatam, where Shukdev Goswami is reciting Srimad Bhagavatam to Parikshit Maharaj. And later on, Sutta Goswami is reciting Srimad Bhagavatam at Naimisharanya and to the sages, headed by Shaunaka Rishi as their spokesperson. And then Vyasadeva writing Srimad Bhagavatam, providing this great benediction that by reading Srimad Bhagavatam, we can go back home, back to Godhead. And when Lord leaves, along with Krishna Swadhamopadyate Dharma Jnanadhibhisa. So Lord Krishna is going to return back home, back to Godhead, along with Dham, religion, Gyan, knowledge, Adi, and other auspicious qualities that appear as his energies in this material world. And so we have shelter of Lord Shri Krishna. So he appears in Kali Yuga in three forms: as Srimad Bhagavatam, as Archa form, as his deity form, and in his name, right? So he appears, he has put all his potencies in his name. So we should take to the chanting of the holy name, especially in Purushottam Mass. We should chant it more attentively, with more feeling, because any little endeavor performed at this time can save us from the greatest danger. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Ganthara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Anant Kori Vaishnav Vrind ki jai, Nitaya Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari Bol. Please join us for Nrsimhadev prayers.
Hare Krishna. नरसिंहदेव भगवान की जय, प्रहलाद महाराज की जय, श्रीला प्रभुपाद की जय, अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय, निताय गौर प्रेमानंदे, हरि हरि बोल। हरे कृष्णा।
Hare Krishna.